And don't forget my magic passport to the Netherlands.
That's right. Sitting here with Tom Rhodes. We just had a fantastic conversation about all the things. Holy cow. How you started Comedy Central, how you were the Dutch David Letterman, how you're afraid of the big building over at Universal and the reasons why.
I didn't say I was afraid of it.
I thought it was a big scary
Not
building.
me. I witnessed the fear of others.
Oh, I see.
I witnessed the fear of others. You kidding?
And all the normal stuff that we usually do. Mrs. Ryan does the news. We do TBT videos. And it's Lit Week here in Los Angeles. Tune in tonight, and we will see you out there.
Read a book.
Weekend. TOM. Thank goodness.
Oh, man.
I'm just making sure. I have a tendency to misspell names, and I happen to know that he spent some time overseas. I don't know what the whole story is. We're going to find out when he gets here.
I'm excited. I have MS. Sometimes my eyes don't work, Tom.
No, this is good. This is good. Today is a bit of an experimental show, so let's talk about that. The guest and everything else is great. However, Mrs. Ryan, we have found out in the past that when you do things out of the house, meetings, whatever, before the show, sometimes the show can be a little bit funny. But you have been growing and strengthening so much that we are going to try that today because you had a big meeting. I haven't seen you at all today. You've been out all morning.
Mm-hmm. It went longer than either of us planned.
I'm assuming that's a good thing.
Which is great.
It was a business meeting, right?
It was a business meeting with an old former colleague of mine. My math isn't working great, but I'm working really hard to keep my thoughts together. So fingers crossed.
All right.
As well.
We'll get through this. It's no big deal. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to our friend at home. Tonight is Wednesday, February 26th, 2020. Oh my goodness. My name is Jay Ryan. This is Nicole Ryan. We're the Ryans. Welcome back to the old late night playset. Our guest this evening. Let's see. I think I probably remember him from Comedy Central, and then I'm thinking some people may know him as the Dutch David Letterman. We're going to talk to him in a few minutes when he gets in here. Tom Rhodes is here, and Richard Chasler's in the house as well, so we've got a full boat tonight.
Yay!
Mrs. Ryan, there's a bunch of stuff. No surprise, it's Lit Week in L.A. A lot of Porsche stuff going on, so there's a couple of videos we have to do.
Okay.
We've got an East Coast feed. We have a little bit of viewer mail, which is kind of fun. Package arrived in the mail yesterday, and it's Wednesday, but we're going to do TBT because we're not here tomorrow.
Gotcha.
And then you'll have a choice between two of those. So what would you like to do first from this magical card?
East Coast feed, I would like, please.
All right. They're funny yesterday.
It's so funny.
Those guys were funny yesterday.
So funny, guys.
And Brooke, I hope you're feeling better. I think she could be hungover today. Let's see. Check in with Danbury Chive, the East Coast feed, and see where they are today. Roll it, Hal.
Well, East Coast feed? Tell Jake. East Coast feed. Look, it's Brooke, Coraline, the Kazman, and Mike Kaz. You know where we are today? Tell Jay and Nicole where we are. We're in Brooklyn, that's right. And what are we watching?
We're watching the dinosaurs.
We're watching Jurassic Tour in Brooklyn. You guys want to see? We're at the front row. Oh my gosh, guys, you ready? Watch this. And this is where they play basketball and what else, remember?
Hockey.
Good job, kid, that's right. There we go. Hold that popcorn. It's $15 worth of popcorn. You're going to lose it. That's it. We're just here watching Jurassic World. Coraline, you having fun? Hey, tell Jay what kind of dinosaurs you saw. What kind? Stegosaurus and Gallimimus. There's so many. Were there any raptors?
Yeah.
How many?
3.
3, huh? Pretty cool, huh? All right, say goodbye to Jay and Nicole, everybody.
Bye, Nicole.
See you later.
Oh, yeah. All right, so when I was a kid, it was Ice Capades or like Herbie on Ice or one of those, and it sounded like Jurassic Tour. Is that what you heard?
That's what I heard.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I like it.
I think that's the newest one.
What's that you say? That's the newest one?
I believe so. Not going to say anything.
When I was a kid, it was they would bring the circus to town. There was the Ice Capades. There was all those traveling shows, and it didn't even occur to me that they still do them. I'm just not a kid. You know, when you say that's the new one, like, of course, people know about this, people with children and everything. It's new to me. All right.
I'm even more behind. I was thinking the movie. So I'm going to rescind everything I just said.
Yeah, all right. I like it. All right, well, let's open up the old viewer mail.
Okay.
There's the card for it. Holy crap. And I'll let you open it. I'm going to put it this way on the desk so that other people can see where it's from. This arrived yesterday.
cool.
I have not opened it up and saw the contents. I saw that it was from him and that this is probably some giftage.
All right.
This is Ryan, perhaps.
We will look. We will look. Hi, Dwight. Oh, my.
If you recognize that sticker, of course, Carpe Gear is Dwight Knowlton.
Believe that's for you.
What does it say? Shifts and grins. That's great.
Awesome.
Shits and giggles, shifts and grins. Oh, that's great. Funny. That's lovely.
There's a hat
Nice. Oh, with the
Dwight's
this is the
company?
competition motor, sure.
and another shirt for you.
Lovely. Very cool. Porsche nut. You're a
Very
Porsche nut.
cool.
Our guest asked before, having never met us before, he said, "Do you have a Porsche?" I said, "We do, as a matter of fact." That's awesome. All right.
Thanks,
Good
Dwight.
job, Mrs.
Good
Ryan.
job.
And thank you, Dwight, for all that stuff. Highly recommend going to carpegear.com, picking up some of that stuff. I'm sure everything you just saw here is available there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Got that out of the way. All right, Mrs. Ryan, TBT. We're going to go back to, it's Lit Week, as we mentioned before, here in Los Angeles, and we're going to go back to the Lit Week from last year or the year before. Either way, we've got either the Trip Up to Breakfast Club,
Okay.
or we've got Keep in Time, which was the professor-run video. Either way, they were both from the same week, probably the same people, etc. So you choose.
I want to say the Keep in Time one.
Keep in
I
Time?
remember liking it a lot.
Oh, yeah, we do. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Not because of my video, because at the time we had. Enjoy. It's a little bit longer, so enjoy.
Cool.
TBT rolls
I
out.
love it.
Standing
Perfect.
traffic.
There was no thinking, just reacting.
Where
My
was
God.
this, you guys?
All 5 lanes are closed on Highway 5.
Oh,
Yes.
is it mudslide or? Yeah, you came in drive? The early arrivals.
No, it was whatever today. Whatever this.
Fellas, I seem to get Derek's arrival every time. Slides or power slides today? One of the two.
So I just read it's not a competition.
But you're gonna try and win, right?
Yeah, right? Follow. Oh my God.
That's Klaus, everybody. We just met him. He came in from Vegas for this.
So last year everybody got one, but nobody looked at it. Everybody took a ride on Decker Canyon. Continue to Mulholland. It's basically like 2 small routes. We're going up, going back down to PCH, going south, then going back up.
Saturday morning, the professor run. Everyone is about to roll out. Safe drive, Professor.
Thank you. To you. You get an A for the semester, by the way.
Nice.
Okay, now. All right, we got it now.
Professor Run, top of Pyuma. P-break.
Stunt Road.
Selfie mode.
Such a good selfie. Just want to make sure we got it all.
Get it?
I love Life with the Ryans.
Yeah, I think so. Sheldon's leaving, so we want to get it in. We're here at Lit. After the Professor Run. It was pretty crazy. Hi, Mrs. Ryan. We love LA.
Yep.
It was a fun day, mister.
Everybody awake? We were all intently watching that like it was an actual little short film.
I do love that video, but it is long, but it's so cute.
Oh, it's good stuff. I keep forgetting we've got a guest cam over there. There's Tom. Hi, Tom. All right. With that, Mrs. Ryan, it's time to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. We got everything else done, right?
I believe so.
All right. What's going on, Mrs. Ryan? Dun, 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 dun.
Viruses are like batteries, studies are finding. They self-generate, they create electricity, and that's being harnessed now in certain studies. They're figuring out how to harness the energy created.
I think what happened is we got there and nobody told anyone. So now we're at the next level of shit. Everything, everywhere. Remember you were talking about the blood-brain barrier and how we didn't used to even think you could penetrate that. And now everything is, well, is it above or below the blood-brain barrier and the whole bit? It just seems like the same kind of thing.
It's a good point. There's a lot of that. You're right.
I go back to the Eames powers of 10. You zoom out, you zoom in.
You're totally right. I know that I see little inside pieces of all that. I find it fascinating. It's like nerding out about a person or a comedy bit or something I used to do.
Because you're dissecting and extrapolating the whole bit. I have a feeling that that's great, though, and it's for what you do. It's what you need to be focusing on. You're still using the same tools, just focusing it on what you need to. I think it's great.
Thanks. Me too. I hope so. Macaulay Culkin's going to be back in entertainment again.
Okay.
It's going to be on American Horror Story Season 10.
Oh, he's going to be acting.
Yeah.
All right.
Season 10.
I mean, I have nothing to say about Macaulay Culkin except I was with him the night that I decided to move to Los Angeles. We weren't there together, but we were seated at the same table. It was the night Sarah Michelle Gellar hosted Saturday Night Live, and it was the season finale, and we were all at that museum. It was the night Jimmy Fallon came over and sneezed on our pizza so he could eat it. It was before it was like his first season. It was May 15th, 99, only because I just saw the ticket recently, the green room ticket.
I will tell any dumb tale to get those stories again.
Macaulay Culkin was awesome. You couldn't get a word in with the guy because he had just recently gotten married, I think, at the time. Remember when he was young? This was 99, so whatever that was, 20 years ago. And so they were like inseparable all over each other at the table. And Seth Green was there too. A bunch of people. It's fun.
I'm
a fan of his from that Home Alone, man. I haven't seen much since. His brother's a heck of an actor, that Kieran Culkin.
Kieran's great. I love the idea of him. I don't necessarily watch the show. I know we watched the first couple of seasons, but I just know this is a big deal, and it's bigger than anyone's making it. They're making it about the show, but I'm stoked for him, so we'll see.
I think it'll be an interesting vehicle.
Yeah.
Because, well, he's kind of a weird dude, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's a weird show. It should be great.
Agreed. Tune in.
American Horror Story, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, and I'm going to learn more about this also, but in the stand-up world, this is a big deal. Mark Maron's going to do another special next month.
Well, this is going to be great to talk about with our guest here because they both sort of started at Comedy Central. That, from my recollection anyway, I'm sure we'll talk probably a little bit more.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to him about it, so I'm not going to say so much.
Everyone else found Mark Maron through that podcast, and I kind of remember, I can't remember the name of the show now, but it was Short Attention Span Theater. It was Short Attention Span, is that correct? Yeah. The comedy guys are saying yes.
That's how it goes, so we'll see more of him.
Great.
I like his voice.
I agree. Hey, and that's... You are sneaking it up on me lately. And that's been What's Going On, Mrs. Ryan.
The worst. I'm so sorry.
No, I love it. Keeping me on my toes. It's so great. It's not like I have anything to do over here. I love it. Mrs. Ryan, it's time to do that thing. We're going to take a break. We're going to get our guest Tom Rhodes in here.
Cool.
You good?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it all done, right?
Yeah.
Just in the nick of time. Going to take a quick break. Tom Rhodes will be in here. We're going to talk about Comedy Central. We're going to talk about how he was the Dutch David Letterman and everything else from his comedy career in just a few minutes, right in that chair.
Awesome.
Late Night Playset. Be back after this. Shut up, mister.
Howdy, Mr. and Mrs. Ryan. This is Paul Kennel calling from Otto Kramer's. Getting ready for the 11th annual open house, our big annual open house in celebration of the Porsche Lit Show weekend that's been going on for almost 40 years. We are busting at the seams. We have so many cool new toys that have just arrived in the last few days. So we are even sticking stuff in our overflow lot too. We've got someone you know's new GT2 waiting for pickup. 968's going. There's my daily driver. There's Jennifer's bug. And we are sticking stuff in our neighbor's garage. So hopefully we'll see you and everyone else on Friday coming up the 28th. All day long, we got pizza and fun and hang out. Love you guys.
I feel like that should have been on the 90s playlist there for sure.
Next time.
Joan Osborne or one of those. Was it Joan Osborne? Is that what you just did?
No, that was Sheryl Crow.
Oh,
But
Sheryl Crow.
I saw Joan Osborne. I thought she was going to be the next Janis Joplin, and then she turned out to be a one-hit.
Wasn't that a shame? I thought the same
I saw her
thing.
in concert like
What
3
if
or
God
4
was
times.
one of us, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Scott Joplin. All right. Well, with that, we are sitting here with Tom Rhodes. Thank you, Richard.
Let's confuse the guest right before you turn the cameras on.
Hey, focus.
We are sitting here with Tom Rhodes.
Hello,
Thanks
Ryan.
for being here, man.
Mrs. Ryan, you have a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
I know a girl named Portia.
Do you?
Her stripper name is Jill.
Awesome. Well, I said jokingly before that you were the Dutch David Letterman, but that's not even a little bit of a joke.
I was.
It's totally true.
I was.
Can you start with maybe how or why you got into comedy? And I would love to progress into some of these.
Well, I
shows
mean,
that
that's a
mentioned.
long. I mean, my father loved stand-up comedy.
How so?
He loved Richard Pryor.
Okay.
He had Pryor and Bob Newhart. My dad had
Great.
their records, and I grew up with the records. And my family's from Washington, D.C. My uncle did open mic night comedy for 1 year in 1978. My father took me to see him. I was 11 years old. The entrance was next to the stage. The show was in progress. I was wearing a Washington Redskins jacket. I'm 11 years old. The comedian pulled me on stage and interviewed me like I was the coach of the Redskins. And I was bashful and gave dopey little kid one-word answers. Yes, no. But I'll never forget standing on that stage and seeing all those happy people with their heads thrown back in laughter and all the teeth in their mouth. And I'm sure the memory has been romanticized, but in my mind it was, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, white people. It was like when you were on that stage, you were talking to the world. So that moment changed my life. From that moment forward, I never wanted to do anything else.
11 years old, you said?
Yeah, so I became a student of stand-up comedy, and SNL was brand new. Johnny Carson was my god. Loved Carson. Anytime I would circle in the TV guides whenever there'd be like a comedian on Mike Douglas, and then I guess it was probably my freshman year of high school, maybe when Letterman came on. Maybe he came on when I was in middle school, but then And then like Carson and Letterman back to back was just like, for a comedy nerd was just, it was,
You got the talk show and then the non-talk show, right?
it was amazing. But for like a stand-up lover, because like Letterman had on alternative, subversive acts. Like I remember, who I'm friends with now, Emo Phillips and
wow.
Judy Tenuta and all.
I remember all those shows.
And Kevin Meaney.
Sure.
All these like just wacky different kind of comedians. So
I remember Kevin Meaney on the early days there. That's awesome.
it was my I mean that was
That's not right, Kevin Meaney?
yeah
No longer with us?
we're big pants people, or what was his? I loved Kevin Meaney. Yeah. What are you hopped up on goofballs?
Yeah, that's it.
My dad used to always say. My dad thought that was hilarious. Yeah, and also to my father drove me to my first open mic night. We watched all the HBO Comedy Hour specials. So I mean, it was my father's the reason I fell in love with comedy, and he's dead now. But like all throughout my career, my family moved to Orlando, Florida when I was 12, Oviedo, Florida to be precise, and that's where I started. So I started on the southern circuits. Played every shithole in the southern United States that ends in ville or borough. Everywhere in the middle to late 80s, there was a weekend comedy gig in every Holiday Inn lounge. Mm-hmm. And
there's Bananas up in my part of the town, Poughkeepsie, New York.
Oh,
We
okay.
had Bananas. It was at the Holiday Inn, though.
Ah, there you go. So my dad would turn up in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. This was before internet. I'd leave in my schedule, and oh my God, I'm in Troy, Alabama, and my dad just walked in.
That's so cool.
And then when I had my sitcom on NBC, I filmed it at Universal.
Mr. Rhodes?
My dad lived in L.A. at the time, and he sat in the front row for every taping. Oh, man. So, had a nice...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and then my father fought in Vietnam. He flew helicopters. So when I was like the face of Comedy Central, I was the first comedian ever to have a development deal with the network. And Bill Clinton had lifted the travel ban for Americans that travel to Vietnam, and I made an hour special called Viva Vietnam, where I went to Vietnam, and
just started some shit. What? Just
well,
walking around on the
I
street?
went there to have fun for the guys who didn't get to have fun,
Okay.
and there was a lot of. We did the Jane Fonda workout tape in Hanoi with some old women that did Tai Chi in a park.
Around
and we filmed that in
1990?
September '94
There we
because
go.
it came on April 95 for the 20th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. So
Okay.
1994 technology, we had a TV and a VCR, and we had to run 10 extension cords connected, like 2 blocks to like a plug to even pull off this shot. I brought Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and I fought people wherever I went.
Remember that?
That ended up just being like a little piece of the special, but I had envisioned that like that would be throughout the whole thing. But so anyway, I got to honor my dad.
That's what I'm taking from this. You don't know anything about me, but the only reason I'm into all this stuff was my dad as well, and I grew up in the same area where he used to go to the Ed Sullivan Theater to watch the Jackie Gleason show get taped on Saturday nights
Wow.
when he was a kid. Turned into the Honeymooners, obviously. And so that was always my fundamental as well, from Abbott and Costello to the guys you mentioned as well. My dad died when I was young and never got to see me do anything with it other than a little rinky-dink high school show. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what really resonated with me there was you got to do all this stuff that he helped put you on that trajectory, and then he got to see it. That to me is really a cool gift, and I don't even know if you realize it. But just from the other paradigm over here,
Well,
I'm like,
that's
wow,
nice that you
really
point that
fucking
out. I
cool.
mean, I was really lucky. I mean, I loved my dad. I mean, my parents were divorced. He had problems. He had his own personal issues, but heavy drinker. But I always had a great time with the guy, and he was super charming and super funny.
Yeah.
And I get my best qualities from the guy.
Did he want to do that in any way, shape, or form?
No, I mean that wasn't even an option.
Of course not, but
And then,
if in his mind
and then
he
he had kids and a family, but like he just stand-up comedy was always very respected and revered in my family. Even at like family reunions, I remember everybody had specific like favorite comedians. I mean, the older people would tell you why Benny Youngman was brilliant. And I always thought he was
Henny Youngman.
Henny Youngman.
Benny Goodman.
Henny Youngman, thank you. And I remember because I started when I was 17. I remember like just talking big shit at family reunions, like 18, 19. I thought Sam Kinison was, amazing. I mean, like
I mean, he was, right? Especially when I was 18 or 19.
Yeah, but I think maybe like I was like 15, 16. Rodney Dangerfield was my god.
Okay.
I had memorized every Dangerfield line.
Was this the I Got No Respect, or where are we in his
whole
career?
thing? I loved Rodney.
Okay.
I still love Rodney. And then I remember people telling me, well, Henny Youngman was brilliant, and why, and different.
Sort of the generation before, right?
And you brought up Jackie Gleason. Here's an observation for you. On The Honeymooners, his catchphrase was, "One of these days, Alice, pow, right to the moon." Right in the kisser to the moon.
Yeah,
However
there
it
are
went.
variances of it, yep.
And then, later in his career, he did those like 3 or 4 Smokey and the Bandit movies.
Yeah.
And he was with his stupid son.
Sheriff
who was
Buford T.
He's the
Justice.
sheriff, the son's the deputy, and he would say
Don't
to
leave
his
me, Daddy. Who's going to hold your hat?
he would say to his dumb son, "Junior, when I get home, I'm going to punch your mama right in the mouth." That guy's career was built on threatening violence to women,
His wife, yeah.
which, in the 50s and the 70s, apparently was very funny in America. Because that guy was...
He was so funny.
He was like one of the biggest stars.
The more exasperated
on American
he would
television.
get, the better it got for me. The more exasperated Ralph Cramden gets, the better the show is for me.
Evolution of thought and how we express ourselves, I think. That comes down to.
If I recall, in the Smokey and the Bandit movie, it was because there was such a differentiation between the intelligence of the two guys. He said, "There ain't no way you came from my loins," and that was the reason for it.
Yeah.
I think Alice was just always trying to help.
But I mean,
always trying to fix the situation.
but his wife's infidelity still would be no reason to strike her. He should he should examine his own faults. He should have examined his own faults to wonder why his wife would have to seek, affection and in outside the
For
relationship.
the record, no lady remembers that she had any kind of affair. We just remember the violence and the implications.
I would like to say how well adjusted you must be as a person to
Yeah.
have rounded that out in that way and said, "Oh boy, if only he looked within."
That it wouldn't have been a good show, The Honeymooners, if he just stopped and went.
Norton, come down here. I gotta
Alice,
talk to you for a
I
minute."
realize I've been a coarse individual. I've driven you away from the home, and I apologize. I'm going to quit my job at the bus station, and I'm going to spend more time at home.
Thursday.
Maybe we can do pottery
At 8.
together. Let's save this marriage.
Was Jackie Gleason anything for you? I mean, did you?
My family. I am related to some Ryans, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I grew up in Orlando, and they're from Delray Beach.
Oh.
And my uncle Ronnie, who's now deceased, I always thought he resembled Jackie Gleason.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and he was a cop. And then his son, Ronnie Jr., who's my age, used to be a cop in South Florida. Like the way my dream was to be a comedian, his dream was to be a cop because his dad was a cop. So I'm glad
What
I
incarnation?
got the comedy dream.
What incarnation of Jackie Gleason would he have resembled? Like Ralph Cramden?
Ralph
Sheriff
Cramden.
Justice? Okay.
Ralph Cramden. Yeah.
Gotcha. Man, I can't believe you brought up the Smokey and the Bandit movies. It's a very easy jump to make, but my dad made me watch.
Not
those
just an
movies as a kid.
observation I've been
Loved
carrying around, and I haven't been able to share it with anybody. So
it. Oh, I feel like it was already worked out.
it's the best that ever came out.
How did Comedy Central come into your life? I know how it came into my life. I found it doing Saturday Night Live reruns in the middle of after school when there was nothing but educational program on. So
Wow.
I was very quickly magnetized to it.
Who is the cast for that?
No, they were the reruns. That's a by the way to get to Comedy Central when it was new. That's what they had on at the time. How did you get involved with Comedy Central, especially when Comedy Central was brand new? Brand new.
Yeah, well, I started out in Orlando doing comedy, and then started on the southern circuits when I was 17. When I was 20 years old, I moved to New York City. I wasn't ready. Couldn't get on at the good clubs. I was broke, and it was a rough year. I moved back to Florida for a year to lick my wounds, and I really started to figure out, I needed to do. All I cared about was comedy. Even today, I've let all my relationships, everything fall apart. Every move I've ever made in my life was to make myself better as a comedian.
Yeah.
And I always thought I had this I read Jack Kerouac's On the Road in high school, so I had this real romantic thing about San Francisco, and I love Mark Twain. I think Mark Twain invented stand-up comedy in San Francisco. I think it's October 4th, 1866. The day might be off, but it was October 1866 when Mark Twain gave the first lecture on the Sandwich Islands, which we now call Hawaii. It was very humorous. I think that is the birth of stand-up comedy. He called it platform speaking, and he hated it. And then also, like all those like kind of subversive stand-up acts that were on Letterman, a lot of them came out of San Francisco. So I always thought like a higher intelligence of comedy came out of San Francisco. I didn't want to be on television or try and get a sitcom. And that's why I didn't move to LA. I knew I needed to go to like graduate school for comedy. So I moved to San Francisco. And that's where things really that's where I got good as a comedian. There was like 4 or 5 clubs in the city at the time. The Punchline. It was a brilliant scene back then. Mark Maron lived there, Patton Oswalt, Greg Proops, Margaret Cho, Dana Gould would be coming around. Several years later, Mitch Hedberg came around, and just like this brilliant generation of comedians. And like we were all young comedians at that time, and trying to impress each other with well-written jokes and just it was a very pure, earnest time. So one of the shows, I think it was called 2 Drink Minimum at the time. I think years later that kind of show became Premium Blend, and I'm sure there's a version of it now.
I think you're exactly right. They've kind of used the set and everything.
It's the same concept. Yeah. Hot young comedians doing like a 10-minute set. So I had grown my hair long. I was young and skinny and sexy, and I rocked the balls off the joint. The taping, they had seen me. They had an audition at the Punchline in San Francisco where they were looking for, acts. I was one of the ones chosen, and then I destroyed that set in New York, and they hired me to do they gave me a development deal. They wanted to hold on to me.
That was going to be my question. Did they know what they were auditioning people for, or they just needed something?
No, the audition was for the 2 Drink Minimum show.
Oh, it was to host the show. Okay,
but not to host it. It was a stand-up show.
Oh, just to be on the show, just to be.
It was a show of young comedians, and everybody's doing 10-minute sets.
I guess then, how did you then? I recall you being the face of the network in that you were the face between all the shows. Yeah,
so I filmed. It was great. Dennis Leary had done these like things on MTV where they had filmed his jokes like rock videos.
I think you hear me knocking. I think I'm coming in. All that shit, right?
So Comedy Central did it with me. I filmed. That was the first thing before the development deal. I did this. They filmed like, I think like 6 or 8 of my jokes as little mini 30-second, 1-minute kind of rock videos, and they played them in between the commercials. And those were so successful, then they got me to do another batch, which was really exciting. And then those were great, and then they gave me the development deal.
It's really funny. So what in my mind might have seemed like a big deal, it was only because I just saw the same shit over and over and over. And you probably spent one afternoon, recording a bunch of these things or whatever. And I just happened to, as being an impressionable kid, saw them over and over and over.
Yeah.
Is that what's going on here?
They played them over and over and over. So, I mean, it made me...
Meanwhile, I'm like, this guy owns Comedy Central. What a cool guy.
It gave me a following, at the time. And then Comedy Central was really cool. So like, it would be cool. It was like, punk rock lesbians, and it was like kind of cool alternative people that I got as fans in that period. Was really great.
Was Comedy Central I recall a Comedy Channel, but it might have been the same thing, and maybe it was.
It was Comedy Channel before it became Comedy Central. Apparently, it was like Comedy Channel, and Comedy Central, or something like that. There was 2.
Yeah, that's what I.
In like remember. The first year or something. This was before.
Correct.
And then they merged to become one.
Okay.
Instead of battling it out, somebody decided to merge, and that became Comedy Central. Okay. And then I guess it was that first year or 2 that they were trying to develop talent.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Thank you, Richard Chasler.
We run out of time?
No, we're plenty, but we have to take a quick break. Late Night Playset will be back right after these quick words from Oh So Delicious Hot Sauce, the hot sauce made by bears.
Oh, so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by bears. Garlic and serrano mixed with love and care. You can put it on your eggs, pour it on your rice. It's great on a leg, it's better on a slice. It's oh so delicious. It's the hot sauce made by bears. Oh, so delicious hot sauce. Great on everything except oatmeal.
Get your bottle today at ohsodelicious.org. $1 from every bottle sold goes to the National Military Family Association.
I'm gonna thank your segment producer for that. All right, Comedy Central. There were two. Okay, that probably doesn't matter so much. Then what happened? Then what happened with your career? Then what happened? Where'd you go? Did you stay with Comedy Central for a while? Because how did we get across the country to you hosting a Desk and Chairs chat show? At some point, I'd love to talk about that.
I did the Viva Vietnam special, which was a nice little, kind of underground hit. I got some nice reviews off of it. And that came out April 95. In July 1995, I did the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival, and that's when NBC discovered me. Oh. And actually, there was it was like NBC, Fox, and HBO.
Yeah.
It was like kind of a bidding war. HBO was only offering a special. Fox actually offered me more money, but I grew up worshiping American comedy, and for me, NBC was comedy. Johnny Carson, David Letterman, SNL, all these brilliant sitcoms that I grew up with. It was no choice. They could have been offering me $20. I would have gone with NBC. That's how much I loved them.
You're not alone.
In retrospect, I mean, I after, because this, I got the sitcom made. Originally, I wanted to be a public defender lawyer, the voice of the voiceless.
On the show.
That was the premise that I wanted to do. They said, we had a lawyer show fail. Can you make Tom a teacher? And I thought, yeah, what the hell? It doesn't matter what the job is. I'm me. You're young and I was young and arrogant.
NBC apparently has one move. NBC has one move.
Yep.
That year, there was only... there was like 4 other teacher shows came out on that same year.
Head of the Class is the only thing.
No. Those were before. There was like Nick Freno and all these all these. It was like that's like somebody had to have known. So I was like, fuck, I should have stuck with that original idea. Like Seinfeld wouldn't bend. They were offering him a show for 20 years. And he was like, no, until, he could do it the way he wanted to do it. And then, the cast was amazing. After the first few episodes, the focus became on the kids, which drove me nuts. I felt like the straight man on my own show, where I would just give advice and watch all the kids get all the funny stuff. But, I thought for years, God, I wish I should have just stayed with Comedy Central. Because to be honest with you, I loved Comedy Central with all my heart. Everyone that worked there, the executives, the people, they were, in the early days of Comedy Central, I don't, I get kind of treated as an old guy. Whatever. Comedy Central's still been good to me. I still get on there once in a while.
Was it Viacom back then? Back when you were, was it Viacom?
I think Viacom
MTV,
did own it. Yeah. But I loved Comedy Central, and I felt like a junior filmmaker when I was there. If I had an idea, and they were really experimental in the beginning. They're still experimental. They still do great stuff. And I understand, their demographic, but. I just have a romantic vision of comedy in general, that we're all one big family. And I loved Comedy Central and the fact that I came up with this idea to go to Vietnam. And they were like, yeah, here's the cameras, here's the money, you go do that. And, that
kind of support must be nice from a network especially.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought they were as enthusiastic about comedy as I was. So, and then when I got up into the NBC thing, there was just so much there's just so many crustaceans that are on you when you're. It's a pity, you know.
Yeah.
Your manager goes, okay, these people are going to be your agents, and this is going to be your money person. Oh, I need, I got to incorporate and all these things, and it's like, when at Comedy Central, I just felt like an artist. I felt like a junior filmmaker.
Oh, interesting.
You know.
Interesting. And you think it's still that way?
I
don't know.
I mean, they're still doing great shows. The Aquafina, I haven't seen it, but like, you know, a show about a young Asian girl in Queens. I think that's great. You know, they were the first ones to put Bill Maher on the air. I'm trying to think of what like stuff they're doing now.
I
you
remember
know
that. I remember when Politically Correct was on Comedy Central. I mean, I thought that show changed things.
That's
then
right.
it went to the network.
That's
and
when
what
I
killed
think
it.
that was kind of the turning
It
point
was
of
the
Comedy
exact
Central.
Same,
Yeah,
it was your story. He left to go to a network, and that killed it.
yeah.
I remember that. You're right.
But in the Comedy Central years too, like I said, I felt like I had a really cool audience from that because it was, so like when I got the NBC sitcom, when I'd go out and do stand up, like then my audience went from like kind of, different subversives to like couples in their 30s who wanted to see the cute teacher guy. You know?
Oh, interesting.
So that was an
do you
interesting.
tailor your act at that point, or
No,
do
I
you
didn't.
Stay who you are. Yeah. I mean, I don't have it.
No,
I wouldn't know
I
which way
didn't.
to go. The advice seems like you should stay yourself. But
Oh
I
my
mean,
God!
What you're drawing
He's
out.
not that guy with advice on the like he is on the show.
Professional advice is different than personal advice in this situation. It sounds like you stayed true to your authentic self. I like it.
How long did that show go on NBC?
I made a full 96 to 97. I did a full season.
That's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. Like a
good.
normal season's 21 episodes, but I think we did 20. We were like
Same thing.
right under it. But it, it wasn't loudly canceled and trumpeted in
Just
the
kinda went
press,
away.
which happens a lot of times. And
Well, it's good.
I'm still good friends with Stephen Tobolowsky.
Ned Ryerson?
I was good friends with Ron Glass, who died a few years ago. The cast was absolutely brilliant.
Wow. That's awesome. Did you have anything to do with casting?
I
it's
mean, I
your
was in
show.
there.
But I never knew. Listen, people
Well,
have
I mean, like
a lot of...
when it got down to the network twos,
This is what I'm
which
getting
is the
at.
most, and like coming to your place, I passed that black tower in
Oh,
front of Universal.
Yeah.
That's where the executives are.
You know it.
Now it's NBC Universal has combined, but at the time they were separate companies. I wonder how much that would have helped things if they'd have been merged at the time. But one of the most daunting things I've ever witnessed, and thank God I was the star of the show, when they got it down to the two final choices of every role, I'm up there. I would do the reads with the people, and there's this like 7, 8 executives and TV network people. I mean, from Universal and NBC. And the casting people, that's what I meant to say. And then they do the audition, and then, everybody, well, what'd you think? Oh, I didn't like her hair, and they seemed a little nervous to me, and I for an actor, I couldn't imagine what a mental fuck that is to get your game up in your brain, like you got to hit it like an Olympic dive.
You've been on auditions. I'm sure that you probably do know what that's like, right? You just didn't have to in this case because it was your show.
No, audition, like a lot of times you go on auditions and there's like, you're in the lobby with 8 people, This is the final 2.
Oh, you're talking, yeah.
And this is
Studio
like,
callback, sure.
wow, this show might last a few years and I might never have to work again if I'm good on this 5-minute little piece of my life.
No, you're
and
right,
come
the
in
stakes are much higher.
smiling. My sister, who I was very close with, and she studied drama at Florida State University. I got her a job on my show, which she parlayed into a job at Universal after my sitcom finished.
Smart girl.
My sister is now deceased. She died of breast cancer, but she worked for she was an assistant for the casting person at Universal for a few years. And her observation was the actor has got the part. The one who gets the part is the one who got it before they walked in the room.
Yep.
Agreed.
Totally agreed.
That like you did the person in
Don't
they
you
made
think that's
them.
the same for anything, whether you're trying to get on SNL or you're trying to get on Carson in the old days or whatever?
Yeah, but but
You have to know
anybody.
that it's your time. I think for anybody. How about you when you got your sitcom? Didn't you feel like, all right, you know what? These lily pads have all lined up to this thing, and it all worked out. And this, I don't know what's going to happen from here, but I see the path that got us here. Wasn't that kind of an amazing? What was that ride like for you? Having your own sitcom on NBC.
Well, I mean, it was great. I lived on top of the Hollywood Hills. I had a rock star
I
apartment.
don't care about that shit. What did it feel like inside for you?
I felt like king of the world until about halfway through the season, when I realized I wasn't going to be able to change it.
Well, right. Yeah.
But I was so arrogant. I thought, well, I'll have another show.
Right, I'll just do it again.
I'll have another show next year, and I can develop it the way I want it. But Ted Williams thought he was going to have more than one World Series. Also,
Now he's just a frozen, cracked head.
I love Ted Williams. Watch it.
So do I. But isn't he just a frozen, cracked head someplace?
You
now,
watch
supposedly?
when they bring back.
Oh, it's going to happen
when they can reattach dead heads to new living bodies.
When I was a kid, I remember the whole thing. He had passed
when
away.
Ted Williams is hosting this show, and you didn't invest your money in freezing your head.
Oh, it's such a great. But wasn't there a thing in the 90s or whatever? Oh, yeah, we dropped the box and his head cracked or whatever. There was a whole thing. It was awful. You didn't hear about this?
I didn't know about that.
Well, perhaps they tried to hide that. All right. How do we get to the Dutch David Letterman? And because here's what I remember about this show. I've only seen clips of it on YouTube. And I remember that it wasn't your name, but it was your name. It was, tell us all about this show, would you?
Well, when my sitcom finished, I looked at the money I had as my NBC artist grant, and it was great. I felt like I had reached the top of Mount Olympus, and I never wanted a sitcom. That wasn't my dream, but I got it. I tried my best, and I never stopped doing stand-up, and I looked at that money. I just wanted to reinvest in myself. So I moved back to New York City because I had lived there like a dog when I was 20. And I always swore to myself if I ever had any money, I'd live in New York City with style. So I got a rock star apartment in the Wall Street area, 98 to 2000. I was just like a few blocks from the World Trade Center. I was on the 18th floor. I had 3 marble balconies. Basically, I pissed away most of that sitcom money on that New York rent and flying back and forth to London. So Rich Hall is a good friend of mine who was in with London.
Rich Hall, like famous Rich Hall?
Sniglitz
used to
Rich
work
Hall.
on the Letterman
He
show.
He was on SNL as well.
Yeah.
He got a daytime Emmy for the David Letterman show. I've stayed at his second home in Livingston, Montana.
He worked on the daytime show too?
He has a daytime Emmy from the Letterman.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was there that early. That's so cool.
Yeah, Rich has been around
him
forever.
and Meryl and Dave, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry for the sidebar.
One of my oldest best friends, he went with me to Vietnam. I could choose one writer to go with me, and I chose Rich Hall. And he took it for less money. He just wanted to go and be a part of it. So he helped me get in with London, and once I cracked London, I was going back and forth. I was going back and forth from New York to London and playing London a lot, and then that led to gigs around England and gigs around Europe. I played in Amsterdam. I fell in love with a Dutch girl. So I moved to Amsterdam in 2000, and I thought, I'm just going to focus on. I was still traveling all the time, back and forth to the States and all the gigs around Europe, and I was partying really hard, especially in London. And me and the girl broke up with me. So I was about to move back to the United States when these people from this Dutch television network were looking for an American to host a late night talk show. And they had the audition at Toomler, which is the best comedy club in Amsterdam. And I had just gotten back from Hong Kong, and I had for the first time in my life, a suit tailor-made. Oh, wow. So all the other comedians showed up like they were going to cut the grass. They're all wearing T-shirts and dirty tennis shoes and shit. And I did have a great set that night. And I'd lived in Amsterdam for a couple years, so I had some really great observations. And some of the other people, auditioned, like some English guys came over from England, and then there were some Americans there. So I had a few advantages that I had a lot of observations on the Netherlands, and the fact that I think I looked I showed up for the audition. I guess it's true.
You
looked
look
like a
nice.
host.
You look the part.
I guess I made the decision before I got there.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, look at this guy.
So well, I just had that realization talking to you.
Yeah, I watched your
I never
eyes.
thought
Awesome.
I never thought that before.
There's something to be said about being ready.
Yeah, so I got to stay. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life. You know, you were asking me like, how did you feel when you got up to that sitcom and that path?
That wasn't the one.
I mean, this. Who could ever even imagine that my life story would involve? I'm from a little town in Florida, man, and to have the life that I've had, to have lived in New York City a couple times, and San Francisco. This is my third time living in LA, but I got to do this late night talk show for 2 years, and as a guy who grew up. Like a lot of the interviews I would do, you know, a lot of the Dutch interviews like to get sassy with you. And so what do you think? How do you feel that you're basically copying David Letterman?
Oh.
And I said, well, what you have wrong is I'm copying Johnny Carson, is who David Letterman was also copying. And Johnny Carson was my god. And then to be the guy coming out from behind the big curtain in the $2,000 suit, and you come out and stand on the X and you do your 5-minute monologue, and then like walk over to the desk. I had a musical sidekick, E-Life, the highest selling hip hop recording artist in the Netherlands at the time. So he was this really, you know, street cred, cool black dude from Rotterdam. And so like I'd sit down and we'd banter, and then you'd do a skit. I'd always do a man on the street skit that we had previously filmed, but they'd film me running out a side door and then play the thing.
Sure.
But the main thing about the show was I was a foreigner experiencing Dutch culture. So every episode there'd be a 5-minute film where I would experience Dutch culture. Like I spent a day with a Dutch farmer. And I wore the wooden shoes and helped him. And I walked into an electric fence. He said, "Look out for the electric fence" in Dutch, but I don't speak Dutch. There was a lot of really funny moments like that. And then, you know, I was given a tour of the red light district by a former prostitute who helps the women do their taxes and health care. You know, the drug tolerant laws were explained to me. Every aspect of Dutch society was explained to me, which was really, I had this magical passport to the Netherlands. I even got to cover the prime minister debates.
It's amazing.
With a press badge. I'm down there asking their most important political people questions. And the first season, they had a thing where it was the word of the day. And it was kind of gratuitous tits and ass, where a girl in a bikini would come out with a Dutch word. But it was kind of beautiful. The audience would explain to me how to say it and what it meant. And then Dutch people are very stoic people. They're not like Americans who will tell you their whole life story in the first 2 minutes. You really got to know a Dutch person for them to open up. I had this magic passport to the Netherlands where I'd go around the country and someone would say, you know, they'd tell me a Dutch word. I'd be buying a pack of cigarettes and they'd tell me a Dutch word, and then the guy would go, "And that's your word of the day."
So they're getting it.
Yeah, and then and I'd go around to these. We filmed all over the country. We did all these great things. I got to experience so many things that even Dutch people wouldn't get to experience. You know, that just experienced so much.
Being outside or inside.
Like just things in Holland and Dutch society and doing. You know, one day I spent with the guy on the trains who serves the coffee to the people, and he was just this immigrant guy who was super friendly. And that's where I learned "Ben je gelukkig?" which is "Are you happy?" And like, you don't ask
the coffee guy would check in with people.
He'd ask people, and that's like, to ask someone in Holland if you're very happy is a very personal question,
because they don't open up.
They don't open up. And anyway, all their biggest stars could come on and be interviewed. We had Steve-O from Jackass when the Jackass show was on, and he stapled his balls onto his leg.
I remember that clip.
There's no censorship on Dutch television. You can show anything, you can say anything. The only censorship is you can't endorse products. I could say I liked beer. I couldn't say I liked Heineken, because that's endorsing a specific brand. So it's the exact opposite of the United States, where our whole system is endorsing brands, and you can't say all kinds of things and you can't show all kinds of things. So if that was not fortuitous enough, I did 3 seasons, which was 2 years. When that ended, the same network let me be a presenter on a travel show. So and I got to do a highlight on St. Petersburg, Russia, Peru, the Champagne region of France. I had that little country of the Netherlands was very, very good to me. And most importantly, it helped me build my confidence back up after the sitcom.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, I don't know, I felt it was weird after the sitcom.
So the sitcom one, you not having all those feels makes perfect sense, and I'm kind of surprised it went a whole season. Was the talk show in the Netherlands? Did you get? I mean, you kind of alluded to it before, but did that give you the feels of like, oh, this is?
I had total freedom. It was the exact opposite of the sitcom experience, which is funny because they named the show before they found the host. So the show was called Kevin Masters Late Night, and I would never answer to Kevin. If a guest called me Kevin, I'd say my name is Tom. And I actually fought it up to the end with the woman who put me on television in the Netherlands. I said my name is very important to me. I have to be Tom Rhodes. I've spent my life establishing it. And then finally at the end, I mean, after we went back and forth for weeks, she said, we'll find someone else. And I said, okay, I'm Kevin Masters. But I had him, because every interview, they couldn't understand it either. The second season, it became Kevin Masters starring Tom Rhodes.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I remembered seeing that graphic.
Yeah.
So that
was because
that wasn't intended originally. That's funny.
No, and that's because all of the magazines and newspaper interviews were all like, "Who's fucking Kevin?"
Yeah.
They didn't understand it either.
Right.
Your name's not Kevin? No, my name's Tom Rhodes. I'm from Oviedo, Florida.
That's kind of an awesome, happy accident.
Yeah, so I mean,
What do you mean you're not Dutch?
I mean, I got to be on. It didn't pay like American television, but it paid very nicely, and I got to live in a rock star apartment in the center of Amsterdam, and like I was single, and like man, oh my god, ecstasy in the early 2000s was so pure. I really I was dancing, and
What was
it's
it?
a little town. It's like New York City if it was a village, Amsterdam. Because you have people from every corner of the globe there.
Did you feel that way before you started to host a travel show?
What's that?
Did you feel this way about Amsterdam before you hosted a travel show and then started looking at all these things in places?
I fell head over heels in love with Amsterdam. The only time
But
I ever had
thought
that.
that was because of the girl.
Yeah, and also Amsterdam.
And the place. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I haven't been there in a few years. I'm going back in June. I think it's been like. I married a woman from Rotterdam. We just got divorced last year, but we're still good friends. But I just think, I know that they have their own problems, but I really, really loved the Netherlands and the way they do things,
I know one guy there, and he's been very, very solid. I sold him a DeLorean. How's that? There you go.
Cool.
The Johnny of it all.
Johnny of it all?
Yeah, Johnny Carson of it all. You see,
yeah.
I mean, I'm clearly.
Yeah.
That's one of his microphones from the New York show behind
Oh, wow.
you, actually, up there.
Wow, the New York show.
From the old days, yeah.
Wow. I love the Life magazine interview with him where he's like, he's dying in Dallas. He's already a star on the New York show, but he's playing to conservative audiences, and they thought he was like edgy, this Life magazine thing. And Johnny Carson's talking about playing to conservative, uptight people. In Dallas, if you remember that Life magazine profile on
I'm
him.
going to have to go find it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Wow.
And it's like he's like 2 or 3 years into the show, and you think, just as a comedian on comedian level, you think, oh man,
He was
you
killing.
wouldn't think he'd have to deal with that.
Yeah. Especially after, 3 years, he had already developed a rhythm. They had a show at that point.
Yeah.
You weren't alive. No, you weren't alive for any of that shit. But you know about all, like... when
No,
Jack
but
Parr-
I mean,
when
yeah,
Jack Parr walked off
Jack
and all that
Parr
shit.
and all that. No, it's my family are
See, me too.
it's
in your DNA, right?
Yeah, every it's there's nothing more important to me than the history of comedy and creating comedy and being a part of it.
What are you doing now? I know you're doing dates, and I know you're performing. And everything else,
I
but
came
what's
out with a
going on
brand
you
new
these
album,
days?
so I've been doing the international circuits for 20 years. Here, I brought you a copy of my brand new album. This is the digital download.
Wow! All right.
Thank you.
So it took me 2 years to record it. It's called Around the World. It's 3 hours long. There's 40 tracks, and I recorded it in 24 cities around the world. It starts in Paris, and it ends in Jerusalem. And it's all mostly jokes and stories about each place. Last year, when I was going through my divorce, I did a tour of Israel. I had never been there before, and I flew in a week early, and I took my 80-year-old Jesus freak mother to Jerusalem.
Wow.
Yeah,
How'd it
I've
go?
had an amazing life. So, so it's all mostly jokes and stories about those places. I got, it's Amsterdam, London, Dublin, Oslo, Berlin, Bangkok, Beijing, Sydney. I got 2 Mongolia tracks.
This is amazing.
Yeah, and it's only it's like $15 on iTunes.
However long ago this was that you were doing the travel show, obviously you're a comedian, you've got that brain. While you were doing was the travel show even funny? Was it supposed to be funny?
No, it was more like I could be funny. I had moments, but like there was certain information that had to be conveyed, and that's the thing when you do a travel show, you walk on the most beautiful beach in the world, and it's like, this, if you come to Aruba, is like the most popular beach, and then you got to get into the van and drive to the next spot.
Yeah.
So there was...
I guess what the question is, to do something like this, to travel that many places, and to come up with this creatively, were you... This is where I'm coming with the comedian brain, where you're always collecting. Were you just sponging all that shit up while you're working for somebody else doing travel about this beach and that beach and this whatever? Are you also just sucking all this up to later do material, or even write it then?
Yeah,
and there?
I mean, of course. I mean, and that's why I've moved all these different places, and to be a great comedian, you have to have experiences to talk about. Wherever I've gone. I mean, and that was the thing. I mean, Dutch people do things, they want to do things in the smartest possible way. And like, it's a small country. You look at everything and there's like smart use of small space. And, I would, and I still do it. When I go places, there's things I'm into that I'll read all about,
Like what? Like weird stuff?
I'm like, the French Revolution is one of my historical obsessions. I'm halfway through the biography of Napoleon right now. He's just someone I found interesting.
Yeah.
Last year, I did a tour of England, and I brought all these Lord Byron biographies. I've never really knew about him. I knew he was king of the Romantic poets. So it depends.
Do you like history in general, then?
I love history.
You're always learning.
I'm always learning. It turns me on. If you come to my living room, I've got like 5,000 books in my living room. I've just, reading and knowing shit is my jam.
Nice.
And traveling. So, and this new album is basically the fruit of 20 years of doing the international circuits and material I've developed. The first love of my adult life, when I lived in San Francisco, I lived there with a Parisian woman. So I got a long history with Paris, a lot of material there from living in Amsterdam, London,
If you could pick any of the places you've been to actually set up a shop and live, where would
Paris,
that be?
I love Paris, yeah.
Of all the places.
Yeah, I mean, Amsterdam's amazing, but yeah, I just, I love Paris.
That's awesome.
I'm a Francophile. That's like a pedophile, but for French people.
Word on the street.
At least the
But hey, I
monetary
should
system.
tell you, for the last 10 years, I was trying to make a show. My dream show that I've always wanted to make
Now we're getting to it. Okay.
is I wanted to be the Anthony Bourdain of comedy. Bourdain is one of my heroes. I think that show is one of the greatest shows ever made. And especially the things his narrative, I think, is what made it brilliant. And his compassion and his outlook on the world. So... I pitched it about 5 or 6 years ago. It didn't get bites. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I pitched it to Comedy Central, the Travel Channel, and CNN, and Netflix. Netflix, a year later, came out with The World of Comedians. They got all these comedians from around the world. Yeah. I guess they figured, why do we need a host?
Right.
Comedy Central, I came very close. It was the greatest pitch of my life, and I even had formats and example episodes built out. And I'm great friends with famous comedians from every country, anyway, they rejected it. So
so far,
I don't know what I would have to do to make this show. And then now it seems like the world is
were doing, but you're not working on that anymore.
Well, I'm almost finished with
your dream show. How do you get rid of your dream show?
I'm almost finished with a book about all my greatest stories traveling the world. almost drowning in Thailand, getting maced in Paris, bringing my Jesus freak mother to Jerusalem. The world is turning in on itself. Everybody is being inclusive and protecting. They're pulling up their drawbridges and putting
all over the place.
So, 3 years ago when I was pitching the show, the world was a different place. So you ask me, why would I give up on this idea? There used to be a great scene in China. China has killed all the English language stand-up comedy scenes.
Oh, I see. So
a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
There still are great comedy scenes all over Asia. When I first started doing them 20 years ago, it was just like they'd bring in comedians from England. And then all the Singapore, Beijing, Kuala Lumpur, Hanoi, all these places have their own comedy scenes now. And there's great comedians. There's, I might be an old white guy, but not all my friends aren't.
Yeah.
I know, transgender people in different countries, or people of every ethnicity from every country.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I guess my point is, I don't actually believe that the world is less funny. I think the funny.
It's not less funny. It's less
or
welcoming of a global outlook.
Could be.
Is what I think.
That could be very true. I think they're very
especially
much
in our own country, which is where people make shows.
I think the global outlook is actually being pushed upon us, but there's its own agenda. Your agenda probably won't penetrate.
I'd probably have a better chance of making the show with Holland, Dutch people.
Well,
because they're
what's wrong with
world
that?
champ, not a thing.
Because you have a history there too.
I'm a big fan.
I would have walked out of that Comedy Central. I started this network. Who do you think you are?
No, I don't. I think a lot of people who work for Comedy Central don't even remember.
That's funny. All right, what didn't we mention? What haven't we gotten to?
I'm a Capricorn. My favorite color is blue.
Blue. All right, Capricorn.
My wife and I got divorced, but we're still very good friends.
Well, I knew about that. We covered that actually.
And it is possible to end a relationship in love the way you started it. And I play everywhere. I'm going to Portland, Oregon next week.
Where?
A comedy club called Harvey's.
There we go. Harvey's up in Portland.
Yeah.
All right.
When does this air? Today?
Tonight. Yeah.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Just like a proper TV talk show should.
Yeah, I got dates in.
Same day.
I'm going to Florida soon. I'm going to Key West last week of March, doing gigs, and then I'm doing gigs in South Florida. I haven't been there in probably about 5 years.
You don't have to answer this or not, but do you drink?
I stopped drinking 6 years ago when I got this scar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the scar, but good for you. We don't drink either, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I used to be a heavy partier, man, and I was like, give me the drugs. And I, after the death of my father and my sister, I really had stopped drinking for pleasure, and I really started to look like shit. And I used to be a fairly decent looking guy, and I like when Facebook memories pop up from like 6-7 years ago.
That's disastrous for everybody. That's the worst thing ever.
So I haven't drank or done hard drugs in 6 years, and the way I used to feel about cocaine is how I now feel about donuts. I mean, I won't go out chasing after it, but if a friend's got a bag, I'll have a taste.
With that,
buy my album. Come see me live.
Yeah.
As much as I've done in my career, I don't have that many followers.
It looks like TomRhodes.net.
TomRhodes.net. I'm at _Tom Rhodes on Instagram. I don't fuck with Twitter too much because it's the hate faucet. But everywhere else, you can find me.
Let's see. We have a new segment here we call Final Word. Final thoughts. That's what's called. Final thoughts. If there's anything you would like to share with, I guess we said to keep up with you, but if you have any thoughts for followers out there or anybody else, if you have a message out there for the world at all, this is your opportunity.
That's funny because I always end my podcast with a question like that, and then you just hit me with it.
That's how it always works.
We got don't be a dick. That was Jesus' whole message.
Bravo.
Don't be a dick. Read Voltaire. Read Henry Miller. The Rosy Crucifixion trilogy. Nexus, Plexus, and Sexus. Read Rumi. Read Hafiz. These were Sufi mystic poets, and it was all about love, laughter, and dancing, especially Hafiz. There's a book of his I love called I Heard God Laughing. And, I have a podcast called Tom Rhodes Smart Camp. And the next episode is going to be on Hattie McDaniel, which I'm going to record later. She was the first black actor to win the Academy Award.
Oh, cool.
She was, people thought, she got shit from the NAACP, all kinds of people throughout her career. She was a great woman. She struggled. She wanted to be buried in, they wouldn't even let her in the room, in the building when she won the Oscar. David O. Selznick had to get her into the room as a favor. She wins it. Her Oscar acceptance speech was like 43 seconds long. And then there was a thing where she wanted to buy a house in a white neighborhood. She had to go to court to make it happen. And then even in death, she wanted to be buried in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And they wouldn't allow it because they didn't allow non-whites. So like her whole life, she's a very heroic character. So I enjoy knowing shit, and I try and share that with people on my podcast and in my comedy.
Expanding horizons.
Enriching the world with wisdom and laughter.
You've been doing your podcast a very long time.
10 years. Since,
yeah, that's awesome. Since they started, pretty much, podcast.
Yeah.
That was you. That's funny. I was like, is there a cat in here? What the hell is that noise? Okay. All right. Are we good? Did we get to it all? Did we do everything? Are we good?
Mark Maron is all I can think of. Otherwise, he had a podcast. Did he come after you or before you?
Actually, Mark was before me, and he was the reason why I got it going. I thought it was, he popularized the medium. And I knew Mark from back in the San Francisco stand-up comedy days, you know. And, I mean, I think podcasts are the greatest thing to happen to stand-up comedy since amplified sound.
I love that you know that.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you don't need a gatekeeper of a network to give you the approval to do your own show. It's like, and like even putting out albums now, it's great. You can do things on your own and own it, even if it doesn't make any money. It's yours, and you made it.
Yeah,
you know, and
you did
creating things is what makes me happy. So it's great that there's less obstacles now.
I love it. I love it. How do you feel about this? You okay with it?
I feel really good about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was really fun talking to you. Thank you so much for being so open and so sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, I like what you've done. You have to come over to my house sometime and
sure.
Check out my books.
What famous TV set do you have?
I don't have one. I just have.
We'll read some books.
I got 5,000 books you can.
Did they tell this is the real David Letterman set?
I was told.
They knew that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's funny.
How did you get it? Oh, you'll tell me later.
I'll tell you that. Yeah. That's it. We're done. We did it. All right, It's Lit Week, everybody. Mrs. Ryan, I love you so very much.
Love you too.
Tom Rhodes, we love you so very much.
I love you guys. Shalom, amigo. Amiga.
We love everybody at home. Please have a great weekend. We will see you out there tomorrow. Sierra Madre, Breakfast Club on Friday. So many open houses and all of the lit events. See you out there. Have a great weekend.